Hi, this is Angela Coulter bringing you the January 2016 spiritual slash metaphysical energy update. It is a little, light. I always end up getting it out the middle of the month no matter what I intend. So actually I'm just going to accept that. That's perfect. There's so much to talk about. So much to talk about. And yet I know there are people who watch this who are on a vast spectrum of from beginner to really advanced in terms of spiritual metaphysics and understanding. So I'm just going to sort of go out there for a minute and talk about how, we really hit a shift in like November, and I talked about this a lot. December was all about moving into this new phase, and it was all about stepping front and center to be authentic to who we are, to be ready to be stepping front and center and be authentic to who we really are. And one of the biggest things that has been happening for many is that they've been put into a crisis of some sort because that which they are holding on to with desperation or whatever, and to such a degree that it might even be invisible to them otherwise, is causing a crisis or has caused a crisis or is starting to cause a crisis. And it is really important to allow yourself to flow through that as best as possible. So depending on where you are on the spectrum depends on how or what questions you'd probably ask about this, right, or want to talk about. But what it comes down to, it's going to be so maddening to some because I say this over and over, but what it comes down to is the importance is truly doing the meditation, quieting the mind, learning, if you don't know how to or don't remember how to yet, learning some way on how to quiet the mind. Meditation. Learning how to not only meditate but have do what I call conscious creation. And that means creating a reality in the way that does serve you in the highest and best way, which means what many would traditionally call healing, resolving, releasing, right? But I look at it as creation because truly the only thing that really exists is right now in the moment, is the present. And until we get presence, it's when we get presence that we master our realities. And so I call it conscious creation. And it is really pertinent for where we are collectively as well as individually to be able to be that, in that presence at all times. Be that light, become that lighthouse, or realize that we are that lighthouse and live it. And I have so much to share, and I'm actually doing a whole bunch of reworking on my website so that I can write. So I can split up my writing to the real basic and practical to the really woo-woo, and that's really coming this month. So be patient with me. It's a work in progress. But I'm really getting pushed to write this stuff on 100% authenticity of the stuff I see and understand, and in a way so that people understand it in very day-to-day lives, but also the very out there stuff for those who would like to stay out there too. In the way that I understand it. So we have a lot of messages that we're giving ourselves right now, and so some people talk about it in numerology, some people talk about it in astrology, some people talk about it in runes or whatever, but the messages that converge that we've given ourselves, because that's all we've done. That's what these are, tools into our realities. All we've done is taken hold of those, we've gotten to the point of saying, okay, we can't ignore it any longer. So we have so many things put in place so that no matter what your flavor of ice cream, as I call it, you will find a flavor that that speaks to you so that you can really tap into. And here's the thing. The reason it's really important to tap into our own guidance, to our higher self, to our higher consciousness, to the higher consciousness, is because everybody's truth is different based on their individual journey, because that's the subjectivity of it. That's what individuality was created for. And for us to all get back to that same place, or remember that we're already there, it takes every single step is very individual to the individual we have split ourselves into. And so what I say might not be your truth, or it might not be presented in the way that you understand is your truth because of my words or my actions, or the way I do things are just different because of what what has led up to this for me versus what has led up to this for you. So, and that includes people who are like psychic, yeah, and I fall into all of these categories, as so do you. But people like psychics and prophets, they call those prophets, seers, right? Channelers, all of that is still subjective. As long as there's individuality, there is ego. And as long as there's ego, there's separation and individual perception. So it's not bad, and I'm not saying it's bad or wrong or whatever, because right and wrong is duality based. But what is really, really important is that true sense of connection with your higher self, to stop and say, when something comes your way, when I'm talking about this stuff, when somebody's talking about some channeling or writing about something, to say, is this my truth? And for me, is it in my highest and best interest to act on this in some way? I don't read a lot because I'm so independent on my stuff, and that's really what our goal is to do, is to become independent on guidance. Because anyway, but the things that pass through my purview, or when somebody brings something up several times in different forums, and then I'm like, okay, maybe I should read this or see this or look at this. I always say at the beginning, show me, let me see and understand very clearly what it is that's highest and best for me to see from this, right? And sometimes if it's a book, I literally will open to the page. Sometimes the book, I'll read the first chapter, first paragraph, first page, half the book, and then I'll be like, okay, that's all you needed. Now you can put it down. And it's not dismissing the writer, the author, the others who are seeing and explaining what they see and understand, right? Because it all helps everyone in different ways, all different flavors of ice cream, as I call it. But what's most important right now is to go the step beyond and stop and say, what is it that's highest and best for me to understand from this? Is this highest and best for me? Is this my truth? Is this something for me to apply? Especially when somebody tells you to do something, right automatically. I've had students who are very advanced practitioners go to somebody who's in a channeling, who looks at them and says, oh, well, this being, this entity says that you should do this. And then they drop what their whole guidance had been, and they just do what they're told, instead of stepping back, because we automatically give more power to non-incarnate levels of our consciousness, which is all that is. And by the way, could just be the collective level of a consciousness that we all are embodying in different ways here too, which that tends to be the case more than not. So, should always indicates ego, which indicates separation and subjectivity. So if somebody says, oh, you should do this, or you have to do this, same thing, have to, must, should, can, can't, all that. Has to be, has to be, all that kind of stuff is ego-based. So if anything, I don't care who it is, what message comes in, it's so crucial right now to step back and say, is this my truth? And I see this happen to very advanced practitioners, just listening to somebody else because they give them more credence, they think they're more gifted than they are, whatever. We're all equally divine. And so part of this right now is starting at square one to say, I do have the answers. I can remember them. I'm worthy of it. And taking the baby steps to do that. Now, how do you do that? Number one, Meditation 101. I'm doing a bunch of courses right now with different people who are gathering groups that just don't even know where to start with meditation. And if you're interested in that, I could do it in person or online. It's really easy. And yes, we can set up groups. And yes, we can, start developing. I have a class that I'm starting in February, the first Tuesday night in February, called Self-Development, Divine Consciousness. And it is through the Trinity Energy Progression practice, but it is a very generic way of really delving beyond just meditation. Because a lot of people then get through meditation, they're like, okay, now what? So this is a very productive way of this class, Self-Development via Divine Consciousness, is about, without limits or without limitations, learning or remembering, helping you to remember ways to consciously create. So that is healing, releasing, letting go, and changing things so that they do serve you. Tapping into your intuitive and magical abilities and divine abilities and having fun with that. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff. And the reason all this is coming up is because it's so important right now, even if you're just starting today. Especially if you're just starting today, because it's time for us to get to the next level, and we're really speeding up in our development and our remembrance. So that's my message for January, and it's sort of short and sweet because it's very succinct, and I have so much I'm going to be sharing, and I know there's going to probably be an onslaught of stuff that's coming out from a lot, because there's a lot of this remembrance coming in. So even more important for you to be in this place is stepping back and asking, is this my truth? Is this for me? Is this my highest and best? Because with just that basic ability, you can navigate really well through all of this in a much easier and flowing fashion, which takes me back to what I first said is, and then when you have those abilities, you can, or when you have some tools that you can use to help you, sort of focus on that and hone in on that, well, then you can simply do all this yourself instead of having to pay a healer, a psychic, or whoever, a counselor or a life coach or whatever. You have the access and the tools to do that. And we build communities to be able to share in this way, in an empowered way versus in a disempowered way. So, press on. Fabulous, fascinating, amazing, and beautiful symphonic times. So we'll see you next month, and love you all. If you have any questions, give me a call. Look me up on spiritualalchemy.net and trinityenergyprogression.com, because lots of classes and groups and tidbits and programs coming up on this. So have a great one. We'll talk to you next month.